Jodha and Akbar, the 24th of October 2021 update. For more updates, please don't forget to subscribe. Jodha is crying and says that is all taking place as a result of me. He got here right here due to me. He has to bear all this as a result of me. Why I didn't die earlier than seeing his ache. Jalal comes there and sits in front of her. He says, why you might be blaming yourself. You probably did justice. And as choose you simply punished me. Jodha says, solely I understand how I gave you punishment. Jalal says, I do know you were feeling my ache earlier than myself. We really feel for one another. That is great thing about our relation. However, when you cry, then how will I be sturdy? Don't cry. He hugs her. Soul talk. Jalal's soul says that punishment was my lesson, that he is in pain which I have given to others. I needed to bear them too. Jodha's soul says that punishment I remembered my entire life. You bore these hunter assaults, however they left influence on my coronary heart for all times, as you needed to get that punishment due to my order. Salim asked Qutb about drive of Mirza. Qutb says they're 25,000. Salim says we're half of them. We've got to be intelligent. I don't need them to run away from our clutches. He hatches a plan for conflict. Qutb asks Salim why. You might be inserting yourself at most tough place in battle discipline? Don't you like yourself a bit? Salim says when the military head is main his drive, then the entire drive will get stronger. I need to guarantee my troopers that I'm with them until my final breath. Qutb says we are going to struggle. Salim says you might be fortunate that you've got somebody who's ready for you. Who's praying in your life, and the one I like doesn't pray for me. In fact, she curses me. Scene 2. Anarkali is praying to God. Zil asks her to hope for Salim too, as he has gone for conflict. Anar says I'll pray for my drive solely and about Salim. He solely loves the gungrus of dancers. Zil says don't take him flippantly. He has spent his life in conflict discipline. He's king, and so they do like dance bars. However, that doesn't imply he isn't a very good warrior. He's our subsequent king. You can't suppose unhealthy about him. Additionally, he's preventing for entire Agra, so hold your private grudges apart and pray for his life. She leaves. Anar thinks about Salim. Anar sits and prays for Salim. Rabba as Pyar Mine performs. Moti asks Jodha how is Jalal. Jodha says he's fantastic now. Rux is with him. Jagdev comes there. Moti says I need to kill him as he made Jalal bear punishment. Jodha comes to speak to Jagdev. Jodha says to him that I do know you have to be damaged with Jalal's matter. Jagdev says I do know you need to have felt unhealthy by giving punishment to him as you're a girl. Jodha says it's not about being girl, however I believe he was harmless. Jagdev says you may have tender coronary heart. I simply needed to inform you that tomorrow is Holi operate. Kaushalya, head of village, says that you simply did nice. Our king has forgotten to provide some happiness to his folks. Jodha says nothing like that. It was King Jalal solely who gave order that Hindus can have a good time their festivals freely. She thinks to carry out reality of Jagdev quickly. Scene 3. Matab involves Jalal. He says I'm fantastic. She speak about her wounds. Jalal says I'm warrior. I'm used to it. You might be working right here as warrior too, and we're pleased with you. Rux says we're. Jodha says comes there and says Jagdev Ash organized Holi operate. It's time to carry out his reality so folks notice that mistake will not be yours. However, of the folks like Jagdev, Rux agrees along with her. Jalal says so we are going to do it. I've dispatched message to Birbal. Jodha says now on Holi, his sins will burn. 2. Jagdev involves Jalal in Holi operate and says I didn't allow you to go away from this village. As a result of I needed you to see who I'm and folks like you might be mere bugs in from me. Jalal will get offended on him. Jagdev involves Jodha and asks to lit Holi's fireplace. Jodha says, Holi is pageant the place folks neglect their grudges and we attempt to kill sins. Jagdev says nice. Thought so I forgive Jalal for his errors. Jodha says I need Jalal to lit the fireplace as he has already bore his punishment. However, why we folks hold giving them punishment? Why can't we give respect to the one that have bore punishment? He ought to be given likelihood to redeem himself, so I need him to lit the fireplace. Jagdev says as you. Jodha offers candle to Jalal. He smiles at her. He lits the fireplace. Kausalya asked to do parikrama, taking rounds round fireplace, and the couples will do it collectively. Jalal does with ruks. Jodha appears at him. Kausalya asks her to return. Jodha says I can't come as it's for couples. Ruks says why not? You forgave my husband. I'm able to be with him proper now due to you solely. You'll be able to come behind us. It should be our honor to have you ever. Jodha smiles and goes behind Jalal. They take rounds collectively. Scene 4. Shama is irritating Haydar. Javeda comes there and asks what occurred. Haydar says I can't bear this woman. You speak to her. He leaves. Shama says the place did you go? Javeda says if she stay like this then Haydar won't marry her. Jodha thinks that that is the primary time. I won't be celebrating Holi with Jalal. Moti comes and applies color to Jodha and felicitates her Holi. Jodha applies color to Moti and Medibal. Moti says Rux doesn't like colors. Jodha asks the place is she? Moti says in her room. Ladies are asking Rux to go out of room to play Holi with them. Kausalya comes and shoos away the women. Rux comes out and thanks her for sending them away. Kausalya says one mustn't drive anybody to have a good time Holi. We are able to use thoughts too. She applies color on her face. One woman throws water at her. Rux shouts, she thinks as soon as I am going to palace then I'll ship this Kausalya to jail. Jodha applies tilak to in poor health folks. She needs them Holi. Kausalya says all of them are completely satisfied. Due to you. Jodha says not due to me however due to Lord. She turns to see Jalal smiling at her. He factors that he needs to use on her. She nods no. Kausalya asks what occurred. Jodha says nothing. Kausalya leaves. Jalal is approaching her with color plate. Jodha is coming in the direction of him too. He journeys and color falls on Jodha's face. She smiles, sits to provide him plate and touches his FT in cursive. Jalal blesses her. Jodha leaves. Rux smiles seeing them. Jagdev comes there and thinks that at this time I'll make Jodha color in my colors. I'll make this Holi particular for her. Jalal finds Jagdev and involves Jodha. He says it's time to show him lesson. Until he's busy right here, my troopers will discover out the place he has hidden the grain cartons. Jagdev desires of making use of colors to Jodha. He says I'll have a good time Holi along with her at any value. He throws color at her face. Jalal and all others are shocked. Jodha angrily appears at him. One man says that Jagdev should have been in limits. Jalal will get offended on him. Jagdev says I used to be throwing at another person and also you got here in between. Jodha says it was not deliberate so I forgive you. Jalal asks his soldier about grain cartons. Soldier says we're not capable of finding it. Jagdev invitations Jodha to return at his son's college for operate. Jodha thinks to not lose her cool in front of him. Jodha agrees to return. Jagdev thinks that this evening might be along with her solely. Jalal thinks that this evening all carry his reality out. Jalal says to Birbal that discover out if different villages have similar folks like Jagdev. I don't need my folks to undergo. He asked troopers to take Jagdev away, they take him. All says sorry to Jalal that they didn't know he was king. Kausalya says sorry to Rux for ordering her. Rux says no, I won't forgive you. I'll take you to Agra, after which it's important to eat meals ready by me. That is your punishment. All smiles. Sharif says to his males that issues are going out of hand. He injures one man and asks him to go to Jalal now, he'll hearken to you. One man involves Jalal and says Sharif's males has attacked us. I've caught their one man. Jalal asks all to be intense. He leaves to search out the matter with Birbal. Jalal, Birbal and Fazl is available in jungle. They don't discover anybody. Birbal says perhaps that man was mendacity. Fazl says why would he lie? Jalal says solely that man can reply us. Jidda says to at least one Rux that now issues are solved. Individuals are proud of him. Sharif sends his man to Jodha. Man involves Jodha and says of ache in stomach. Jodha begins treating him, whereas Rux leaves from there. Sharif comes there and holds Jodha's hand. Jodha asks who are you? Sharif exhibits his face. Mahtab is shocked to search out him. She recollects how he needed to kill her in childhood. Sharif says to Jodha that now my want to get you can be fulfilled. Mahtab holds Sharif's ft to depart Jodha. Sharif assaults her with knife on neck and pushes her away. Mahtab falls on floor. Being injured, he begins taking Jodha Awa from there. Birbal and Jalal come back to search out Mahtab mendacity unconscious. He says who dared to do that along with her. Birbal asked to take her for therapy. Jalal brings Mahtab to clinic. Rux asks how did this occur? Jalal asks the place is Jodha? Rux says she was with Mahtab. Jalal asks his troopers to search out Jodha. Rux says maybe she stopped to deal with some injured individual. Physician is treating Mahtab. Jalal leaves to search out Jodha. Sharif brings Jodha to some remoted place. He says I can't see you in ache. He asks his man to open her palms. Man removes rope from her palms. Jodha slaps Sharif arduous. Sharif says I liked this about you. You might be cussed and wild. He takes her inside. Jalal is discovering Jodha. He says the place she have to be. Birbal says solely Mahtab can inform us about Jodha. Jalal asks his troopers to search out each nook and nook of jungle. One man pushes Jodha. Sharif slaps him and says that is the way in which you behave with Mughal queen. She is my coronary heart's queen and can quickly develop into mine. Birbal says to Jalal that it appears to be plan of Sharif. Jalal asks T current the person who knowledgeable us about Sharif's man tied in jungle. Birbal says he isn't right here. Jalal asks them to search out him. Solely he can inform us about Sharif. He says why did I depart them right here? Rux says it's not your fault. You didn't learn about assault. Pray that Mahtab turns into acutely aware, then she will inform us about Jodha. Jalal says who could be behind all this? Scene 3. Jodha says to Sharif that you've got crossed all the bounds. You may have kidnapped me now. Jalal won't depart you, and also you attacked your daughter? You may have misplaced all humanity. Sharif is shocked. She says who behave like this along with his daughter. Sharif says if I knew she was Mahtab then I'd have handled her extra badly. She will need to have gone to God by now. What would have she carried out by residing? She was deaf and dumb. I needed to kill her earlier than 2 and now my work is completed. Jodha says how are you going to suppose like this about your individual blood? Sharif says we've got to compromise to get folks like Jodha says Jalal won't depart you. Sharif says Jalal will come to me crying and pleading as of his most treasured factor with me. He leaves. Jalal recollects how Jodha stated That he's along with her to guard her and no one can separate them. Jalal says I'll discover you at any value. Other side Jodha is crying too, recalling her hug to Jalal. In Ankun Mine performs. Rux involves Jalal and ask him to not fear. Jodha is veer sturdy girls, she have to be fantastic. Jalal says no, I can't keep fairly. Fazil comes there and says we won't be capable to discover Jodha. Birbal says we're not capable of finding who's our enemy. Fazil says perhaps Mirza has carried out this. Jalal says no, he can't stoop so low, and if has done this then I'll neglect that he's my brother. He goes to verify Matab. Matab turns into acutely aware. Jalal ask Matab who did this along with her. She tries to inform Jalal. Jalal calls physician to verify Matab. He asks her to inform who did this along with her. She will not be capable of inform him. She then factors to child. Rux says she is speaking about Sharif. Jalal asks Matab, did Sharif do that with you? Matab turns into unconscious once more. Jalal says I knew it that Sharif and Mirza have developed into companions. Now I cannot depart Mirza. Scene 4. Mirza says to his soldier that we're able to do conflict with Mughal forces. He says Mughal Sultanate was in drawback and Jalal was not in Agra too. Then how did they handle to carry drive to conflict discipline? Whose main? Them? Soldier says Prince Salim. Mirza says excellent. I assumed that I'll have struggle with Jalal, however no drawback. I'll finish Salim now. Salim says to his troopers that were preventing for Mughals. Jalal helps folks. We've got to struggle and win. We've got to ship message to folks that were right here to guard them. Salim thanks Bhagwan Das for serving to them. Das says it was my obligation. He says now we are going to control Mirza's drive. We might be ready to assault them anytime. Inar comes to hope in Dargah. She prays for her father's soul. She recollects how Zil requested her to hope for Salim too. She pays to guard Mughal Sultanate, to assist them in conflict. Maan's soldier tells him that Salim is main the conflict. Maan asks why not Jalal? Man says we bought to know that Jalal resides like frequent man in some village. Man says Sharif's forces should not with Mirza. Maan says their companions, however why Sharif will not be with Mirza. Discover out quickly the place as Sharif. There have to be some purpose for his disappearance. Jodha prays to God to avoid wasting Matab and ship Jalal right here quickly. Sharif brings meals for her and says I've introduced it with love. Eat it, he says I'll make you eat with my very own palms. Jodha angrily appears at him. Sharif says I don't like ego. He forcefully makes her eat. Jodha spits meals on him. Man brings letter for Sharif. Sharif reads the letter of Mirza that I did partnership with you to assault Jalal, however you may have carried out low cost factor by kidnapping Jodha. I cannot tolerate it. I might be your enemy now when you don't depart Jodha. Sharif thinks the way to inform him that conflict can't be won by feelings. He leaves. Jodha prays Jalal come quickly.